Welcome to another episode of The Studios and Shocking Octopus Productions. As you can see, a lovely lamb dinner for Christmas Day. Actually quite easy to prepare. It's not as intimidating as you think. And there I am, peeling ginger. A good trick is to make sure that the ginger is frozen, but I'm doing it fresh. And here I am grating lemons before I squeeze them because I hate to waste the zest. They won't be used in this recipe, but I do save it for other recipes. You can keep it in the fridge for a couple days, probably not more than 3 days, 4 days max. They tend to dry out. So here I am, squeezing the lemons by hand. That's why I'm such a muscular behemoth. And getting every last drop out. Delicious. And an extra step, but I do strain it because you get a little bit more juice. After all that hard work, why waste anything? I always chop onions like this. It's the traditional way to do it. It's a quick and easy way to chop onions. Horizontal, then vertical, and then I chop all the way through. It's a great way to develop knife skills. I guess he doesn't like the smell. And that's bulgur. I'm just rinsing the bulgur. You don't need to cook it, just rinse it. I'm making tabbouleh, that's why I squeeze the lemons. So you start by rinsing fine ground bulgur. You don't have to cook it, just dump it on in there. And I'm adding a bit of salt. And in order to get it to fluff up, I need to add some liquids. I'm putting about 2.5 tablespoons of lemon juice. You can always add a bit more if you like. And then I'm going to add some chopped up tomatoes. Now you can chop them yourselves. You don't have to seed it or get rid of the liquid. You need that to make the bulgur fluff up. Alternately, you can use canned diced tomatoes, whatever you have on hand. If you don't have enough liquid from the tomatoes, you could add a bit of water. I love tomatoes. Those are aromas, they're super juicy. Mix it all up. And you're going to have to let the bulgur sit with the tomatoey liquid, lemon juice, and salt for a couple minutes, maybe 45 minutes to an hour. And the last part, chopping up the greenery that goes into the bulgur. That's parsley. Use a big handful or two. You can use cilantro if you want, but really parsley is what makes it taste best. There you go. That's the parsley. I keep the stems, make a great stock out of it. Not for this recipe, but I will use it later. I hate throwing stems out. I add some green onion, slice it up nicely. If you don't have green onions, you can always use chives, shallots, onions that are finely minced, whatever you have on hand in the kitchen. Don't use cat. And it's important to clean as you go, so whenever I have a quick little break, so I am preparing something else while the tabbouleh develops. I'm going to make a nice apricot chutney to go with the lamb. So I poured some water in that little saucepan. I'm going to add a bit of apple cider vinegar. I use about half cup of water. You can add more as the cooking process goes if you find it's getting too dry before the apricots have fully softened and melted. So I'm chopping up the apricots now. Try not to eat them all. And you can see I've got a little bowl there with a few minced onions from earlier today, as well as a jalapeno and some ginger that you saw me scraping earlier today as well. So I'm just adding everything straight to the pot. That's the minced onion. I'm making little medallions, slicing the raw ginger very thinly. Delicious. You could go light or heavy on the onions, light or heavy on the ginger. When I chop up the jalapeno, you can add the seeds if you like it spicy. You can take out the seeds and ribs if you prefer it a little more mild. Depending on the jalapeno you have, you might want to cut them in tiny, tiny little minced pieces. Some people like bigger pieces. Obviously, it's a spicier kick if you leave them bigger. I always leave the seeds and ribs in because I like spicy food, and so does Thomas. So look at all those lovely colors, gold, white, orange, green. It's going to make a really lovely chutney. Mix it on up. Now earlier I had added some sugar to that mixture, but I didn't put the salt yet. You could add the salt right now or as it cooks. And there's the little baby. Look at those pretty cheeks. So here I am adding the salt to the mixture, and pretty much you want to leave it on a simmer, medium, and it'll slowly soften and get nice and thick, almost jam-like in consistency. As you can see, it's getting a little thicker. If you find the pot is drying out before it's fully thickened, you can always add a splash more water to it. So I'm just checking on the tabbouleh. Want to make sure that it's nice and fluffy and soft before I add the greens to it. I'm just mixing it up, taking a taste. So it's ready to add the greens. I'm going to pour that into the greens, mix it on up, and then I'm going to make a dressing, which would be made with about 4 to 6 tablespoons extra virgin olive oil, some lemon juice, about 2 to 3 tablespoons, and then I would add those spices that you see there in the background. So there I am adding the olive oil. Any type of extra virgin olive oil is fine. Don't use plain vegetable oil. It doesn't really have the right flavor you're looking for. You don't need to use anything expensive. There's the lemon juice. You can always add more lemon juice after everything's all mixed together if you like it a little more sour. And I'm adding a bit of salt. You can add it to taste, about half a teaspoon is fine. I'm adding a couple spices. I'm adding cayenne, I'm adding allspice, and I'm adding cinnamon. And you can use about a 1/4 teaspoon to a 1/2 teaspoon depending on how you like it. Obviously, the more you put, the spicier it's going to be. And then you just whisk it a bit, get it nice and emulsified. Pretty much it's going to get thick like a dressing should be. Good workout. Feel free to taste as you go. So as you can see, I'm working in between making the tabbouleh and making the apricot chutney. I like to multitask in the kitchen. So now I'm going to put the tabbouleh together. So you can always keep it mainly green based, or you could put tons of grain in it depending on what you're looking for in your meal. I tried not to put too much bulgur in it. You can certainly only put a handful of greenery if you'd like a more substantial rice-like meal. Isn't he cute? So there you go. The tabbouleh is ready. Tastes delicious. Just adding a bit of salt to taste. Kind of keep your hands up high and sprinkle it around so that it more evenly distributes. And after I've prepared it, I still want to let the entire mixture sit with the dressing on it at about room temperature for at least an hour. And that looks like it's almost ready too. I definitely enjoyed that. It's better to start off adding too little salt than to add too much and then have nowhere to go. So that's why I don't salt too heavily in the beginning. And tasting as you go is very important. Just use a clean spoon every time you taste. See, he's working out, building up an appetite for the lovely dinner we're going to have later. There I am cleaning again, thinking of my baby. So now I'm going to make the lamb. There is butter, fresh thyme in there, a little bit of onions. I'm using rack of lamb. Now, you need at least a 12-inch skillet if you're going to pan saute it. Best to do one at a time. If you're trying to do two at a time, it'll take a bit longer to cook. You're going to have to make sure when you do cook your lamb, after you pat it dry so that it gets nice and browned, you're going to want to season it with kosher salt and pepper. You don't need to do much with the seasoning. You really want the lamb flavor to shine. If you want to get more grease out, you can lightly cross-hatch the fat without cutting into the meat before you season. What I'm going to do is pan saute it, and I'm going to be flipping it very regularly just to make sure all sides get fully cooked. It's going to be a tight fit in that pan, but I'm too lazy to do it one at a time. So I'm going to be aiming for it to be medium to well done. I personally like lamb on the rare to medium rare side. As you can see, it's a tight fit, which is why you want to do one at a time, but you can still do two at a time. I'm testing it. Put it in the meaty part. Don't let it touch the bone. As you can see, it's not close to being ready yet, even though it looks ready on the outside. Digital thermometer is really important if you're going to pan saute it and you've got a lot of stuff crowded into that pan. So, trying to get all sides of it. It needs to be cut in half and seared on the interior sides if you want it evenly well done or medium well. If you prefer not to do it that way, then it'll be a little rarer towards the interior that isn't as close to the pan. And there's the finished meal. It looks like my little baby's claws reaching out to attack us in the face. Now we're going to dine. Oh, you can tell how happy I am to sit down with a glass of wine and my lovely husband. I'm going to show you what the medium well looks like inside. It does look pinkish, but it is fully cooked. And of course, our little Lord is not satisfied with what the slaves have bought him. He demands sustenance in kibble form today. I am full. And now family time on Christmas Day. The best way to end a lovely evening of productivity. Worshipping our special little boy.